Welcome to Kev's Travel Stories. Each week I'll be bringing you a story from the weird and wonderful world of travel, a world that can change the way you see life and love and even the way we find meaning. Places that are iconic and sometimes surprising and even terrifying. So sit back and enjoy while we go on a magical mystery tour together. Welcome to Kevin's Travel Stories, and this time I'm going to relate to you a story which at the time was not funny at all. But in retrospect, I can now see the lighter side. I was a lot younger then. I was with Mairead and she was carrying Kieran, my one and only son. Everything was very exciting and we had decided to go to Faro to have a little bit of R&R before the child was born in November. So this would be the summer months. So we packed. We had got everything ready to go to Dublin Airport. We came along. We were going with a friend of Mairead's and everything was looking so good. We got to the airport and I'll never forget it. We went up to the Aer Lingus desk and there was that frisson of excitement. Oh, we're going away and this is going to be our first time. And we took out our passports and I had a British passport at the time and I put my passport down with my ticket and the girl picked it up and the smile, dear listener, disappeared from her face. I can still feel the trepidation and that awful silence as she looked up at me and looked across at Mairead and said, "I'm very sorry, but do you know that your passport's out of date?" You know that expression, the blood drains from your face? That is exactly what happened. I actually felt the blood drain from my face and I felt my heart stop. This was a blunder to end all blunders. Immediately, of course, when you're faced with your own stupidity, you deny it. Well, it can't be. Well, surely not. Let me have a look. And of course, we went through that palaver. But, dear listener, it was well and truly months out of date. And we thought, okay, well, Mairead is pregnant. This is quite stressful on all concerned. Is there anything we can do? I remember we knew someone who worked high up at Dublin Airport. This is going back a good while. So in those days, it was a bit less formal and you could possibly, do this and a bit of that and maybe get on the flight. But the answer came back. Yes, we've talked to them, but no. If you get on that flight and they discover your passport is out of date, you will be sent back and the airline will be found thousands of punt, as it was at the time. Tens of thousands. So there was no choice for it. I will never forget the look of horror on Mairead and her friend's face. How could you do this? How could you be so stupid? Whether she said it or whether she did it with a look, the result was the same. I was mortified and shamed. And I can remember bidding her farewell. And I thought, well, I'll rush off to the British Embassy, which was then in Merrion Road, and I'll get it changed immediately and follow you. But of course, it was a Saturday. The embassy was closed. It wasn't open until Monday. So I had to schlep home and lick my wounds. I'll never forget, there was a tennis match the following day. McEnroe played Bjorn Borg. That puts the actual date of it. I think McEnroe won. That was the only highlight, because the rest of the time I was feeling miserable and regretful. Anyway, on Monday I got down to the British Embassy and they were very good. I got a passport that day. So, 3 days late, I rock up at Dublin Airport. I have a new flight. I get on the plane. I fly to Faro. I get on a train, which is 2 hours. And eventually I meet Mairead and her friends and the holiday commences. But I would very strongly share what I learnt from that episode. One, sometimes life becomes so preoccupied and distracted that simple things like tickets, passports, times of flights can all be forgotten. I have friends, as I'm sure you have when you think about it, who have missed the flights because they got the time wrong. They have missed flights because their passport, which is the ultimate sin, is not within the 6 months it needs to be. It not only has to be in date, it has to be 6 months in date for most destinations. So it is a very salutary lesson. But again, we're human. We do make mistakes. Now I can look back. Kieran was born a healthy, bonny baby. Now he has children of his own, grandkids, who I travel around the world with, as you know, if you follow this podcast. And all is forgotten. But I will never forget that moment when I stood looking into the eyes of the Aer Lingus hostess, and I felt my heart suddenly pounding in my chest. My throat and tongue went dry. The hairs on the back of my head stood up. My shoulders tensed, and I felt a big stone in the bottom of my stomach at the horror of what I had done. So, lesson, check your passport, check your tickets, check the time of your flights if you are to avoid salutary and not to be repeated experience.